I think would warrant a quick walkthrough. And I thought this might be a good example to show how you might drop tests into an application that was written without them, at least without unit tests. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start on their account controller. So they have account controller tests in the project, but many of them aren't actually implemented. They have without getting into the details, I think there are ways to make testing much simpler with C# than what's commonly done. And of course, I'm going to be partial to the testing tool that I wrote. So there are a lot of open tests here, and I think they're called register post. So nobody's written a test against their register post method. And I think they've tried to go through and list tests that they think they should write, which I would not recommend doing. Let's look at the account controller. So the method that I'm going to test is the register post or register. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this quickly. I'm just going to see how far I can go. It doesn't look like there's a lot of code here, but the tests I think to cover this would be somewhat intensive. Plus, the dependencies on this controller are a little hairy. So maybe this would be a good learning experience. I guess I'll find out. So I pulled the project down locally. So let me go ahead and check out a new branch. I'm going to say it's add tests to register post. Okay, I have the project open in Visual Studio. I'll keep thinking it's called register post, but this is what they did in the test. So it's the register method, and it's the one that accepts the post. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go to the test project, and they do have account controller test. That's what I showed with GitHub. So I think all the work that we'll need to do are in these two files. First things first, I'm going to add AutoMock. And it's not just that I like to use my own tools. I think it simplifies a lot of this stuff. So let's go to manage NuGet packages, browse for AutoMock. Let's go ahead and install it. Okay. Let's go ahead and check into. I like to check in frequently. So right now, the authors of this application, it seems like they have one test fixture that's using XUnit, and it's supposed to cover all of the methods in the in this controller. And so let's see how many lines. This is pretty crazy. It's a very large file. And down here, this account controller method is how they instantiate a controller. And you can see it's pretty crazy. And I say this, it's not their fault, I think, for all of this. It's just the nature of the beast. They're dealing with HTTP context. They're dealing with the sign-in manager. I think there's some user thing in here that's also a very tough dependency to take in. So I personally don't think it's good to have a test fixture for an entire controller, because controllers do all sorts of things. So I'm going to make a test fixture for just one method. And even though I said I want to test the register post, I'm going to target a simpler method with it, which is just the register. just the one that takes the HTTP GET. So this would be the register page that probably has the form. I'm choosing to test this one first because I think it's going to be enough work just to get a controller to get instantiated, to call a method, let alone test all of this stuff. So I'm first just going to make sure that I can create a controller and I can run a method on it. And a method with one line of code would be the easiest way to do that. So I'm going to start. I personally think it's easier if you have a test fixture per action, if you're testing controllers this way. So I'm going to make a register get test class. And since I'm using AutoMock, AutoMock has a thing called an AutoMock test fixture. And you can give it the class that it's going to be creating. And it's kind of hard to explain, but AutoMock is an auto-mocking container. You give it a class, and it will look at the class's dependencies and automatically create the mocks for you. So it allows you, I can give a quick demo. Let's say I have a class here, public class, foo. And I have a dependency, or it has a dependency called bar. If I create a constructor here and I give it bar, I can say, how about mocker, this new auto-mocker. I can say mocker.create foo. And let's just make up a method on this one. Void do something. Fire. Actually, I want this to be an interface, sorry. Now I could new up this class just by saying new foo, but I have to give it a bar, and this is where normally you'd probably have to take some kind of mock object. And run it this way. All AutoMock does is allow you to say mock or create foo, and then it'll see bar as a dependency and will automatically inject a dependency in. So I can say mocker.get mock I bar, and this is the same as if I had done it myself. So it just saves you the trouble of newing up a bunch of mocks and having a bunch of lines that are just test setup, like this down here. There's a lot of setup and stuff like that. So let's go back up here. We don't need any of this. Okay, first step is first. I want to just be able to call register, which I'm going to need a controller. What does this method do? It returns a view. So if I use this AutoMock test fixture, it gives you a property called subject that is the, in this case, it's the account controller, and I can call methods on it, just like that. So this is the get method, and my test should be that I expect the result should be type, what library did they use here? I forget. Should be of type of view result. Pretty simple. Let's try running it though. So this is using XUnit, so I'm going to use the built-in Visual Studio test runner, and I can see tests here. Let's go ahead and build. Let's get this refreshed. So here's the test. And by the way, all of their other tests, this kind of shows you why you probably don't want to have one test fixture for your entire controller. Here are all the methods that they have defined for this controller. And most of them haven't even been implemented. Let's just try running them. Okay. A lot of them are skipped. Why are they skipped? Let's just run everything. It's always good to start with some sort of green. There we go. So you can see all these tests, and they're all not even written. They're not implemented. I think they have a few greens. Yeah, they have a few greens here for the login, get, and post. But yeah, so the only failing test we have in the project right now is the one I just wrote. And it's due to the fact that the dependencies are not easily mocked, at least with auto mock. So I'm going to have to overcome that. Now, luckily, they've given me a good head start because they've already created a way for us to instantiate a controller. Now, AutoMock can handle mocks like this, like if it's just an interface, no problem. So there's no problem with that. There's no problem with the mock I mediator. If it starts with an I as an interface, AutoMock has no problem with it. But what it has a problem with are these mocks that are concrete implementations, which would be the sign-in manager and the user manager. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to take their code as is, and I'm just going to shove it into my test. This is all of their setup. Here, whole bunch of it. Now, when I can use AutoMock, I'm going to use it. So I can access my mocks with AutoMock with just mocked as a method. So anytime they say new mock, I'm going to replace it with mine, mocked. All right, not too many of those. Oh, it's just a glob of code. It's hard to read. So here are the fancy ones, like the sign-in manager. Let's go ahead, and you can register mocks or specific implementations for any mock. If you just say mocker, which gives you the actual container, then you can say register, or what is it? Set instance, sign in, manager mock object. So that'll register the implementation in there, and it gives me a mock that I can use. What should sign in result be? Let's go back down here. Okay. Should be default sign in result. So let's go ahead and create that. Okay. So there was that sign in. I think there was another one. It was like user something. User manager. Here it is. Okay. And that's good. Let's go ahead and run that test. All right. Let's verify that it went green. Let's get a fail just to verify that it tests for something. Yep. Seems to do that. So let's go ahead and run it one more time just to verify. Can I double click these? I guess I can. I have to run them. All right, let's check in. got a test through register get. Great. So this is a pretty nasty looking test. You know, and one thing I hate about having these concrete implementations is look at this mock. I mean, look how many weird things it has. how many nulls does it take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's crazy. But that one can't be helped. It's not their fault. So I'm going to take all of this. Before I move forward, I want to clean this up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of this setup and move it into a setup method. I think with XUnit, you do it with just a general constructor. Okay. So all of the setup is up here, and it leaves my test just to show what I'm actually running. So let's go ahead and run the test again, just verify that the thing works. So I'm so used to ReSharper, which doesn't run these XUnit tests. They have a lot of tests running through, I think, Jasmine. So let's kill those. Those are not the unit tests. Those are the integration tests, and they have a lot of them. What I actually want to run is just this little piddly test here. Okay. Test cleanup. All right. So now that we've done that, let's get to the test that I really want to write, and that's on the post. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You could just take this entire class and then copy it. Actually, this entire test here. But look at all this setup. We're sharing all this setup. So, you know, some programmers might say, well, that's why we should have that one common setup, one common test fixture for the entire controller. I don't think so. I think what we can do instead is to move all of this setup into a common method that the two fixtures just share. So I'm just going to put it up at the very top. Say this is public static void setup. It's going to take an automock. It's going to take an automock container. And in here, let me go and delete this. I don't need this right now. I'm refactoring this bit of code. Automock has a method called reset subject. This verifies that everything gets cleaned up. I think XUnit will handle that for you, though. So this setup is going to be a common way to set up everything. So I'm going to start just by loading everything into the container that's passed in, the automocking container. Or mock or set instance, that's what it should be. Then in here, I'm going to call that setup. What did I call the method? Let's call it just common setup. Giving it my automock container. And let's run those tests. I don't know how to get it to work with key shortcuts. Doesn't seem to use my key shortcuts for some reason. So that test still passed. But by doing it this way, I can now copy this very small class And I think it'll still work. All right, let's go ahead and just say what we're doing. Getting started on the post test. Okay. Now, I'm not going to call the register get here. I want to call the register post. And that one is the one that takes the register view model. By the way, a view model is normally what you pass to a view. This should probably be an input model. That's what I would call it, register input model, but we're going to go with what we have right now. So it expects a register view model. So, I should probably say my first, I usually use TDD, and we're going to switch to TDD just a little bit, even though this code's already been written. But the first goal, I think, when you're writing tests against existing code is to just get a method call that fires through the so-called happy path. The path through the code that does that's the main point of the whole method. It just gets to the point. We're not going to be testing for null guards or something silly. We want to actually write a test that does something. And we're just going to keep pushing until we get a test through. So okay. So I have the input. I'm going to ask for the output. I don't even care. I'm not going to assert for anything. I just want to verify it doesn't blow up in my face, which it's going to do. So let's call it. It's going to blow up in my face. Heck, let's even watch it. I'm going to debug it. Well, it's not finishing what I want. It's not actually working, but it's not throwing an error. It's kind of weird. So let's look for something legitimate to test. It looks like when this method's called, it does it, if the model state's valid, it creates a user up here. Then if that succeeds, it sends an email. It signs in and adds a claim. I'm not sure what that is. Then it redirects them to home. Yeah, so let's test for that. Let's just test that a redirect happens, assuming everything's good. So the result, oops, let's get a debug. Result should be of type of redirect to action. I think that's what they're doing there. This will at least get me a failing test. Okay. So I know it's still doing more than that. It looks like the main trigger in this thing is this create async. So let's go ahead and, should we set that up or should we just? I think, let's just make our test pass. I mean, whenever I'm confused and I'm not sure what to do, let's just make the test pass. So we have a failing test, and then we know the way to make it pass is to uncomment this line of code, but not even do that. Well, actually, let's just do that. This there. Okay. Now we want to test for something a little bit more than just what it has. We don't want to jump to any conclusions, so let's just redirect to action X, Y. which is obviously wrong, but the test is still going to pass. See if I can get these shortcuts to work, if they just don't work. So let's write a failing test for the actual output. So let's get the redirect equals result as redirect to action results. So we expect in this case the action name should be index, and the controller name should be home. Yep. Let's get that one to fail for the right reason. Now it's going to fail on the Y. Okay. Just make the whole thing pass by bringing this code back in. Okay, great. I think there's going to be more to that test. Let's just continue moving forward. Let's rename this. It should redirect to home page after a successful creation, user creation. Okay, let's keep going. Next test, let's see what else it should do. So if the account creation fails, what it looks like it does is it returns just a view with the original model. So let's test for that. It should stay on the registration page if the user creation fails. So what does it mean for a user creation to pass or fail? It looks like it's all dependent on this user manager. If the create async fails, then if it succeeds, it succeeds. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So let's just start there. And actually, before we even start there, let's do some cleanup because we're already starting to get a mess. I know every test is going to need a view model, input model, but view model. Let's go ahead and let's restart Visual Studio because ReSharper just quit. Okay, ReSharper, are you awake? It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. ReSharper. I'm gonna wake up here in a second. Private register view model. So what that does is I've cut one line out of each test. So I can just call it now with the register view model. So getting back to what we were going to test, it's going to be this one. Let's just go back up to the success. User manager. So what is a user manager? Let's go up to the top. What is a user manager? It is this mock user, not even a mock. This is something, oh yeah, I almost forgot. It's from Microsoft. So I'm sure it's really easy to test. And I already know it's not. They have to have the concrete implementation. Where did that come from? Let's go up to our setup up here. Oh yeah, that user manager is the one that takes all those crazy dependencies. So how do we get this through? Let's take this line. I have an idea. Let's try something a little crazy, but let's have this common setup return it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump around so much. Let's just say var result equals new expando object. This needs to be dynamic return result. There's resharper. I think we got it back. Why is that not? Oh, it's because of this. Let's see, user manager mock equals user manager mock. By doing it this way, it means I can get the results here, var setup, and I could pop the variables right back out of it. So let's just make user manager mock equals setup.user manager mock. And what type is this? It's a mock like that. Hope I didn't go too fast here, but basically this common setup, it not only sets up the mock, but it returns some of the things we're going to need, including this user manager mock. So let's go here. So we expect that if the user manager mock, let's go and set up, we call create async on it. And let's just not worry about the details. Let's just get this going. Is any application user, what's that second argument it takes? The password, great. Password, yep, there we go. I am going to go as far as to load this thing up with a few values. So I know we have password. I like to use random text strings in my test. If it's just pass through, if there's no like logic or concatenation or anything like that. So let's go and I know we're going to need this email. Okay. So if this setup receives any user and our password, oops, not that, then it should return. This is all async stuff, so I'm going to have to do the task dot, what was it, from result. And here, what is this thing expecting? An identity result, okay. I think I've done that once before in my life. Identity result, success, yeah, so that's a success. So if it's a success, it should do that. And let's go ahead and get this set up before the method we call. And then if it's not a success, should return a failed new identity. Ugh. Why do they make this so difficult? New identity error. It's fine, whatever. So that's how we get a failure. So if it fails, it should be returning not a redirect, it should be returning a view result, right? Yeah. And the view result also expects that model. So let's test for that. Result as view result. View data dot model should be same as the register view model that we passed in. All right, I think that looks fine. Let's run the test. Good, one passed, one didn't. This is kind of where we're sort of TDDing code that already exists just by bringing it back. Now I can't bring this back exactly the way it was yet because a user is very complicated. So, but I can't just put a null in here and let's see what happens. Oh yeah, I need to probably put in this if statement. And oh yeah, maybe we should make sure this thing builds because it doesn't. Okay, so if it succeeds, it'll redirect, otherwise it won't. Okay, green, great. Let's check in. Start to consider what to do when the creation fails. All right. Now, like I said before, like we can already tell, I'm not passing in an exact user, and a user is this application user with a username and an email and a time zone. So let's get this time, let's just fake this in our test too. So how would we fake this? Well, I know for some of the simple stuff, I can do this. I can use mock, the mocking library, to assert that the email equals the register view model email. And same thing for the username. Let's do some cleanup here. Okay, so let's try this. We want this test to fail. Yep. Okay. So let's start to make it pass. Let's get rid of that. Let's start to bring this back. Just bring this line back, this line back, this line back, and this line back, but not the time zone yet. Okay, that did it. So how do we get this time zone? It's general settings value. Is there like a mocked my general settings? What was it? General settings is options. General settings. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. There's the value. Wait, what is value? It's a general settings. All right. Okay, and what are we getting out of general settings? The default time zone. Okay, just clean up, and then let's add it to our assertion down here. And y dot time zone ID equals, let's make this its own variable. Okay. I'm going to run this. It's going to fail. Good. We're going to make it come back just by uncommenting this line. Didn't like that. What did I miss? General settings, default time zone, first general settings. Default time zone. I'm not going to guess too long on this. Let's just debug it. So I want to see time zone set to something crazy, and it is. Oh, okay. So we actually made that test pass, but we broke the other one. So this, and it failed because of a null reference on that thing that we just created. So since this general setting stuff is common, I'm just going to cut it. Actually, I'm going to get that debugging first. Cut it and put it in the general setup. Let's keep these together. Oh, default time zone. So I tend to put a lot of all my setup in a common like constructor. And the neat thing about this is you can, if you just want to share variables, you just make them fields. And now this thing will build. Okay, great. Let's clean this up. Okay. So I think it should, you want to have you want to be able to call a test, like a new test, just by being able to call the method and have it run through the happy path. And I think the happy path includes this code. So I'm going to include this up here in the setup as well. What that means is if I want to write a new test, I can just pop a new test. I'll call it new test. And I can just call this. And it'll be a working test. If the system will ever build. And I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Visual Studio Test Runner. Maybe there are ways to get this to go a little faster or something, but no, it's not building. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's asynchronous, so I have to put the weight on it. All right, see, I mean, writing a new test is that simple. I think they were trying to make, I've read comments that they were trying to make the tests a little easier to get going by pre-writing them like this, and I don't think that's the way to make testing easy. I think the way to make testing easy and make it possible for people to jump in is to make it easy to jump in, provide some sort of way to just call a method and know you're okay, and it's going to at least run, and then you can actually code against that and write some failing tests and get it going faster that way. So anyway, let's just say we did some cleanup because we did. Okay, what should we test next? Let's see. Let's start up the top. Let's just say, what if the model state's invalid? Meaning that the input model, view model, has some bad data. So, I mean, that's in the code here, so let's test for it. So, start a new test. It should, what should it do? It should return the view. We know that. So, let's just test for that. It should, I'll just say it should stay on the registration page if the input is bad. All right. Actually, I'll just steal them from here, these two assertions. So what does it mean to have a bad model state? I think it's just as simple as saying, what was it? Is it view data model? No. Model state, that's right. Add model error, there we go. Key error message, right? So that'll put us in the invalid state. Let's go ahead and load this up with some fake data. Okay. Okay, that failed. Let's try to make it pass. If I'm going to make it pass down here where I know it's wrong. Model state is valid, else copy this. Oh, is this filling a different one? It's just on the registration page. Oh, I had a bad assertion in there. Okay, but I think I want to go one step farther than this. We don't just want to return the view. We also want to make sure that we do not call the account creation method. So let's write a test for that. It should not attempt to create a new user when the input is bad. Let's call the method I'm testing. So how do I test for this? I want it to throw. So let's just take the user manager mock setup, create a sync. If it gets any application user and string, it should throw. Exception should not have been called! Exclamation point. That's a pretty simple test. It fails. So let's get rid of all this nonsense that I wrote just to make sure I failed for the right reason. Let's just stick it back up here. Okay. I did not mean to debug it. Still failed. Let's see why it failed. Should not have been called. Let's build. Model state is valid. That seems like it should be fine. Oh, I should gotta make the test case bad here. Gotta make the model state invalid. Okay. Do not create a user when the input is bad. All right. Moving on. What are we going to test next? How about the sign-in? Oh, that's touching the Microsoft code. Let's do the one. Well, they're both touching Microsoft code. Let's stick with using user manager. Let's worry about this one. This add claim async. Let's get out of the bottom. Usually, where I put all the exceptions. Let's see. What are we testing? It should issue a claim, whatever that means, after a successful user creation. Let's say profile incomplete claim. Okay, so how do we test this? Well, I know I'm going to want to call the method I'm testing, and I think that user, what do I call it? User manager mock. We're going to verify that someone calls add claim async with our user. but not any user, this big yucky lambda expression. And is a claim. Claim has to have, oh, geez, why did they make this so hard? A type and a value. The type has to equal this crazy thing. What is this? Names? That's not there. It's not Microsoft namespace. It's, what's this app called? AllReady. Okay, good. For that, the type, and then what was it? It was value. Y value equals new user. Okay, let's comment this back out. This is building. Okay, that fails. Let's try to make it pass by bringing the code back. Okay, great. Let's check in. And technically, I should probably be verifying this doesn't happen when model state's invalid, but it's late right now. Let's just get these tests going at all, I guess. Let's test the next thing, the sign in async. So fact public void it should sign in the new user. So that's the line we're going to test. We need a sign-in manager. What is sign-in manager? Oh yeah, it's one of the crazy ones. Let's go up here to our setup, sign in. So it's going to be this mock result dot sign in manager mock equals sign manager mock. Sign in manager mock is of this type. So let's go to our common setup. Okay, let's make this a field. Great. Oops, there. So I want to verify that my sign-in manager mock I have a problem here. I think I have a problem here. Why is that not working? Why is that one not working? It's a mock. Okay, I don't know why that wasn't working before. So I want to make sure that sign in is passed with, again, that crazy expression for verifying a user. And then what? Is persistent, is false, and let's just see what this looks like. So false and null. False and null. This is the method I'm going to fake. So let's write a test for that. False, null. I'm just going to verify that it was called. I had an extra parenthesis. Okay, that failed. Let's make it pass. Actually, shouldn't it have passed? Let's watch that fail for the right reason one more time. Okay, failed. Pass. All right. Better put we're saying log in the new user after the account is created. Okay. Let's do this last one. Add errors to model state. What does that mean? Please do not be complicated. Okay, that's not complicated, I think. So that's when this one fails. I knew we had tests on this identity error thing, where if we gave it a description, yeah, okay. So it should return, we're just going to fake this test. It should return the account creation error if the user creation fails. So that description should be in the errors. Let's see, view date, view data, model, state, errors. Errors are through model state dot. Oh, this. Oh yeah, it was string empty. That's right. What's that method called? Add errors. Yeah, string empty and then error description. So this dot errors count should be 1 and errors. How do I get errors? I thought it was this. Should error message, yeah. Should be description. That fails. Let's make it pass. All right. Show the account creation errors. Yep. So what do we have left? Boy, this thing took a while, didn't it? Okay, it's just this one in the middle. Sending an email. So it looks like it pulls a token given a user. Then it checks for the URL action. And then it sends the email. This is deeper than I'm going to go because I can already tell there's some problems with this thing. I'll show you what I mean. So here's the code that we would need to test next. This pulling a token isn't hard to fake. That's easy. URL, we'll have to do a fake on the, we'll have to pass a fake URL to the controller, which isn't a problem. Actually, most of this isn't that bad. This is the line of code that I'm not going to be able to get around changing. You know, so all of this code that I've written, I haven't changed anything. Like I've just been commenting it and bringing it back, you know, uncommenting it with a test. But this line of code is going to require me to fake HTTP context somehow. I wonder if they do it somewhere else here. HTTP context, scheme. So does that mean this thing's untestable? Is there anything in here? And there's something here, mock HTTP context, mock HTTP context. Context accessor, of course, that's what you have to do. HTTP context accessor. So the problem is, I think I'd have to do this to the code. I have to inject in a new dependency. What was it? HTTP context accessor. bring that in just so I can do this. Now that's testable, I believe. It depends on what this is, I guess. Yeah, maybe it's testable, but I can't. I don't know. I'd have to go farther. So this is the problem, I think, of even starting to write code with that test. It's sometimes easy to build these things that cannot be tested. If I uncomment this code, though, and I run it, I'm just curious what I'm going to get. Is this a method? No, this wasn't a method. Oh, sorry. So this is another reason why you might want to use a tool like AutoMock. See, with AutoMock, I can change my dependencies and I'm fine. But in this thing, actually, I'm going to give it the HTTP context they built up there. They call it mock. What do they call this thing? Context accessor. Sad. Okay. I predict everything will blow up. Yeah, every happy path is going to blow up. It's failing because yeah, I can't access this. Let's start over. What to do? What to do? Gosh, it's not a good idea to send emails like this. Okay, I reset all that HTTP context stuff I set. Let's try running the test. Yep, same result. All right, so this is one of those things where, you know, you spend an hour writing tests and then you realize someone's hooking to a singleton written by Microsoft. So, so much for these tests. This block of code practically makes the tests makes this code untestable. So, just for my benefit, I guess, though, because I spent time doing this, I'm going to make a method called send email. So this is all catch, return new task. One that does nothing. Can I do that? I can't do that. Don't want to say no, that's going to throw. Can I do that? No. How do I make a task that does nothing? Just give it exactly what it asks for, new action. Oof. Let's Google. Return a task that does nothing, async C#. Task from result 0. Okay, whatever. Let's try that. I can't do that because it's going to return a... Return type is void. Just I can't return the result. I swear I've done this before. Ah. What? Okay, I don't remember how to do this. I don't want it to return null. I'd like to just... I guess it's still changing the code, though. It's horrible. Forget that. Let's how about this? Let's bring this back. Send a confirmation email. Let's comment this bit out, though. Okay. Comment out the untested code. Let me redo that. Untestable code. Okay. So let's have some fun at the very end. Let's refactor this to make it look a little better. So we have tests, so we can start tinkering with it, and we're going to make this thing work a lot better. Okay. I'm going to flatten out these, at least all these if statements. So if it succeeded, then it should... Sorry, here, let's just reset. Here's a problem I think I see with this code, and it's that the indentions are a little crazy in that we have 1, 2, like we're 3 levels into this when really it's just a matter of, and like if I want to know what happens if this if statement fails, I go all the way down here. I think we can keep the code and make it a little bit more concise by keeping the ifs and their results together. So in this case, if model state's invalid, I want to just return if this result succeeded equals false. Let's just stick with that original style. So if that succeeded, then I want to return this stuff. Yeah, see, we don't want to have things in our code that says, if we got this far, like something's wrong up above. No, if something's wrong, we just say what it is right now. So I can at least refactor this so it's pretty flat. Let's just say build a new user. Say attempt to create the user. Wonder why ReSharper didn't do that. Put the task here. Yeah, it's a little strange. Okay. Instead of result, let's say creation result. I don't know. So I just don't like result. Okay. So I think this tells a little bit of a better story. If model state's valid, just return immediately. If the user, or try to create the user, if the creation result failed, then leave. Otherwise, you see now everything lines up. Indention's only one level in at the most. Let's run the test. Okay, so our refactor's safe. So this is where I'm going to stop. I'm pretty disappointed. I thought we'd be able to write tests against the whole thing, but that just shows the dangers of hooking to HTTP context directly. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.